Hey guys, this is week 12 Project Life and I'm working from my stash again this week. I kind of love doing this. What I have started with is this kind of mini kit of 4x6 and 3x4 cards that I put together over on my Patreon channel. I've just had that sitting there waiting to use, and so what I did today was pull that out of the drawer and just add a few bits and pieces to it. So I have grabbed some enamel dots from Simple Stories. I've grabbed some really old tiny word stickers from Studio Calico, this stamp set from Inner Creative Bubble and Feed Your Craft, and a couple of sets of alphas. So I've got some wood grain ones from Again and Again collection from Pink Paisley, and some really pretty little glitter alphas from Heidi Swap. So that's all I'm going to work with today, and I'm excited to get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull out some cards. Now you can see there's a huge 4x6 spot down the bottom that's completely missing, and that's because there's going to be probably a lot more journaling on here than what you're used to seeing from me. Week 12 was kind of the week that things took a turn here in New Zealand, for me at least anyway, and so I wanted to make sure that I actually recorded that rather than just my normal photo heavy thing. I did want to make sure that I actually get some words in here describing what was going on for us anyway. So I'm just filling in the rest of the spots with some cards. I do end up editing this quite a lot. I wanted to make something a little bit more sort of fancy down the bottom, but in the end I decided I would do the words first and then see how I go about embellishing that. So that is quite a light spot down the bottom there, and I wanted to sort of balance out the rest of the page. The photos are a little bit darker. The weather has definitely turned here in New Zealand, so it's a little bit difficult to get some light and bright photos. It's my worst time of year as far as photos go, so everything else I'm going to try and keep a little bit lighter. Now obviously I'm not working with like a ton of embellishments or anything in here. I've really only got these little enamel dots, so everything is going to be really simple, and I'm going to use that stamp set heavily. I don't think it is available anymore. It's from 2018. It's a really old stamp set, like I said, going back through my stash, but I will have a look and see if there's anything sort of similar and link that to the Feed Your Craft shop down below in the description box. So I started with my first 3x4 photo, and I added, it's like a little list onto the sort of darker area of my photo. I stamped that with the Brilliance Moonlight White ink, and then I kind of checked the box with one of those enamel dots. So that was a fun wee way to add that checklist in. And for this photo here, I wanted to use the selfie stamp, but I kind of wanted to describe it a little bit more. So I'm using those tiny alphas. I'm using the pink ones. The whole layout's going to end up being pretty pink, which, you know, I'm not sad about. Just to write out live stream. This was just a selfie that I took at the start of my Patreon live stream in March. And so I'm just adding those words to kind of make a little title for the photo. This time I'm stamping just in black with my Memento Tuxedo black ink. Both of those inks are brilliant for stamping on photos if you print at home like I do on the Canon Photo 2 glossy paper. One of the reasons that I pulled out this stamp set to work with, apart from the fact that it was at the front of my stamp box, is that I felt that there were a lot of opportunities for stamping on this spread with the photos that I had chosen this week, and I felt like this stamp set had a lot of sort of really basic stamps that I could use in a multitude of ways. So what I'm doing here is just working out which stamps I want to layer. I'm again stamping them directly onto the photos. I'm not going to add any journaling onto these cards or the photos. All of the journaling is going to go on that one spot. So really I'm using the stamps as a form of embellishment. Now for the two 3x4 cards that I've got this week that have got the smaller photos on them, I'm going to do pretty much the same thing as I usually would do, and I'm sticking my photos down the bottom this time. Because I've added the sort of titles or the stamps to my full 3x4 photos at the bottom, I didn't want everything to be in one big line, so usually my smaller square photos end up at like the top of a card, so I'm just changing things up a little bit this week. And I'm going to apply them down the bottom so that I can just get that sort of variation of where things are sitting. I decided that I was going to work on my actual journaling card here because it is going to end up being a fairly large element on the page, and I didn't want to go too much further with everything else before I sort of had that visual anchor in there. I'm just starting with, I want to sort of make a little cluster at the top here. I stamped that one captured stamp, and then I'm adding a couple of these tiny word stickers, and then I'm just going to take this card and just take it over to my typewriter and type my journaling onto the sort of right hand side and make a block of journaling on that side there, and then I'll come back and finish off embellishing this card. So you can see my block of journaling there, and once I had that all set down, I realized I wanted something a little bit heavier up on this wee cluster. I'm not going to add too much else to it, but I did go back through my stash and pull out that, I think it's a carousel from Crepe Paper sticker book, just so I could add another tiny word in there, but having that darker teal green just helps to anchor that and make it just a little bit more of a visual element to balance out all of that journaling there. I also had another idea to use some of these camera outlines from the stamp set, and I'm going to stamp them just onto one of the pink journaling cards that I had tried out at the start, and then I'm going to fussy cut them, so I'm going to kind of create my own little die cut shapes. I love this stamp set because it has these wee fill-in pieces. I do love that. You could also stamp them in maybe coloured inks and make it more than just a black and white image on here, but I'm just sticking with black and white because it's easier. And then I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut these out. I'm going to use the larger camera as a sort of focal point for my firewood photo down there, and then I kind of play around with this smaller, it's kind of an Instagram-y looking camera, play around with where that's going to go. I did sort of experiment with adding the stamped camera onto this photo, but it doesn't quite fit. I wanted the snapshot stamp in the middle of that window, and so it doesn't really allow me enough room to have that little camera anywhere else. So for now it's just going to sit there, and I will end up using it on my title card later on. I'm going to start adding some of these enamel dots. They're just a nice sort of way to add a little bit of extra colour to what is a pretty simple layout. But also I'm, attempting to use up as much of my stash as I can this year, so I have no problem adding a bajillion enamel dots onto this spread. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the other little photo onto this card, except this time there wasn't really a stamp that kind of said like what the photo was about, and so instead of just stamping, I'm gonna add this little recorded stamp, and then I'm gonna just add one single word in here with those same alpha stickers. They're really very pretty in real life, just pink and sparkly, and I'm just gonna add the word prep in here so it fits nicely into the gap and it just adds a little bit more context to what the photo is about. Even though I discussed that photo down in the journaling, so it just helps to add a little bit of context. And in that same vein, I kind of want to add another sticker in here just to get that sort of color going, and because I added that one teal sticker down the bottom, I kind of want to keep it a little bit consistent on this spread, and so I don't want to just have one, so I'm going to add a few in here, 3, the magic number 3, and these 3x4 cards seemed like a good place to do that. I did wonder about stamping another sentiment onto the firewood photo, but I just didn't think that it was going to stand out. It didn't matter which color I stamped in. I didn't think it was going to stand out on that background, so in the end I decided against it. And I'm just going to move on to my title card because that's all I've got left to do. I had picked out that kind of flamingo transparency for this title card for no other reason than the fact that I really love it. It's been in this kit for a long time and I kind of really want to use it, but this wasn't really the place to do it. It's just, this week was definitely not sort of a fun and light spread, so I will save that for another time, and I'm just going to use the diagonal card, sort of peachy striped card that I had in the first place. For my date stamp, I want to use the label that's on that carousel sticker sheet, but I haven't had great luck stamping directly onto those before, so what I have done before is, because they're transparent, I'm going to stamp the date onto the card, crossing my fingers that it's going to fit, and then stick the sticker over the top, and you would never know the difference. So I really love how that turns out. It's not too like in your face as a label, it just adds a little bit of shine, a little bit of pink on there, and it does actually fit those date stamps really nicely. I'm going to do something on here that I wouldn't normally do. I don't normally add too much to my title cards like this, but I just wanted to add sort of a little positive kind of note to self on here. So I'm just going to add again those little pink alphas, just the sentiment we got this week 12. That's echoed in my journaling down the bottom as well, which was kind of one of the reasons I picked that out. I could see it sitting there and I decided that that would look really cool up here. And then I decided that that gives me a little space to add my Wii camera as well. So I'm going to just tuck that on to the end of my week here. And then I'm going to add a few of those little enamel dots just to bring a bit more color up into this card. This certainly does look very pink. And so just adding those few other little colors just helps to balance that out a little bit and pull the whole spread together. In the end, it was a really simple spread this week, which is exactly what I needed. I'm not feeling particularly creative at the moment, and working from my stash is one way to ensure that I'm using things I love. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, there are a couple videos on screen. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye guys.